Frank Fleming, welcome to the Victory Degree podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going well. You just watched the end of the United States Brazil game.
Yes, I did. I got to say, a 1-1 tie against Brazil. We usually get our asses kicked by Brazil.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I don't know how they're going to do in the Copa America, but it's nice to actually see them put forth a solid effort.
yeah. Well, we were saying that June 12th, 2024 is going to be the turning point for U.S. soccer. So let's see if it finally happens in our lifetime. I'm rooting for it. I want to see U.S. soccer back at the top.
It's never been at the top.
Hey, we had a little run. We were like
We've
11th.
never had a run.
Okay, we were like 11th in the world, I think, at one point. Like our standings, like 10th or 11th. I'm pretty
We
sure.
could get there again, but I can't ever see us playing in like the Final Four. I mean, if they get
Yeah,
to the quarterfinals of the World Cup, it's a story.
yeah, that's interesting. Why do you think? I mean, the United States is seemingly dominant in most other sports, but soccer has always been that one sport that we can't quite get there. Why do you think it's a culture thing? Do you think it's the way that we, are train our youth? Like, what do you think the reason is?
Well, I think it's this. One, well, our women are a different story, of course. They kick
Right.
ass, but the men's team is because we got football, we got baseball, we got basketball, we got hockey, we got track, we got all these other sports for the best athletes to go to. Soccer, these countries that dominate in soccer, it's soccer. It's soccer, 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 soccer. I mean, everything else is just second. So you got these countries that are just like rabid, ravenous, mad, and just like everything is soccer. It's they live, breathe, and eat soccer 24/7. So of course they'll be better than us every time. We don't draw the best athletes to soccer, and yes, for the United States, we always get the best. Teams always go out and put forth their best effort against us, and um, we have yet to have ever been able to sustain anything necessary. The men's soccer team had a couple of decent appearances in the World Cup. When they didn't even qualify that one time, that was very bad. Yeah, but it's just that they just we just don't live it. I mean, we've gotten better at it, but I think most people who go to soccer and grow up playing soccer are kids who can't play other sports, and parents put them out on the soccer to run around for an hour, tire themselves out, so they go home and they're docile.
Do you speaking of, I guess, how international the game has become, do you have an issue when, we were just talking about the Mavericks and the Celtics, when an NBA team wins the championship and they say world champions? Do you have an
No,
issue with that?
no,
So
never
they're
had.
they're the best in the world. I mean, that's the assumption.
Yes,
I would agree with that.
and I'll tell you what. When it comes to soccer, we never say it for MLS because we're not. Uh, Probably the team who wins the Champions League has the right to do it. Although now they're going to have a club level World Cup that's going to be coming soon. I think next year it's going to be in the U.S. So you'll have like the UEFA champion going up against the African champions, going up against the North American champions. Maybe it'll be a one MLS Cup team in there, MLS team to get their ass kicked. Then there'll be the Asia champion. Maybe you'll see like the EPL champion, and of course all the Champion League teams, European Championship, the Asian Championship. I think, and they've had these tournaments in the past. Now it's expanding this tournament, and Europe always dominates. So whoever wins the Champions League is probably the world champion. So Madrid is probably the best soccer team in the world. So it's no different than just Real Madrid as being the best soccer team in the world. Whoever wins the NBA championship is the best NBA team in the world. Because if there were any good players on those other teams in other countries, Israel, Turkey, Spain, they'll be here.
Yeah. Fair enough, Frank. There's a lot of topics that I want to get into with you today, but I figured a good place for us to start would be with Hank and Franny. Can you explain what that is?
Uh, it was college. Uh, we were uh, we were doing like multi-camera shoots. So it was like learning how to direct, shoot, and it was television production class. So it was like so everyone got a chance to act, everyone got a chance to be a director, everyone got a chance to be a floor director, everyone had a chance to write a story, and we just had to like do the roles. So it's like kind of like a sitcom like that or something like that. One of those things where you just write it out, tell the story, have someone behind the camera, the people operating the camera, operating the television switcher there, the technical director, and just make all these shots. And that was just like an exercise for college. It got recorded, and I thought it was funny to put online.
So you went to Montclair State University.
Yes.
There you got a degree in broadcasting. Was
Yep.
that something? Was being on TV, being in media, what was that something that you always wanted to do? Like, at what
Yes, it
point
is.
did you
Yes, it is.
realize that's maybe the career path I want to go down?
I realized it probably in the '90s sometime when I realized I suck at everything else.
What? Okay, well, explain that a little bit. What do you mean you sucked at everything? What did
That
you
I
try and
that I am
realized you sucked?
uncoordinated. I can't swing a baseball bat. I'm 5'8", so I can't play football. Absolutely am the worst basketball player that's ever lived. I cannot skate, so I figure talking about sports.
That was the right move.
Yes.
So you got a degree from Montclair State. You were doing, you're doing media and TV at college, through these classes, and then you became a substitute teacher for 2 years. What was that part of your life like?
I didn't do it that much. I didn't do it that much, and I sucked at it. It wasn't right for me.
Why try teaching? Like what inspired that?
Because I couldn't find a job elsewhere. And I applied to be a substitute teacher, and pretty much what substitute teachers is, they just want someone to go in there and be able to hold a class's attention for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, however long, or hold a class for a day if you're in like in an elementary school. Uh, I usually got called up and did like the middle school.
It's like I remember those substitute teacher days. We would always cheer when we see a substitute teacher because they would put on a movie. Were you a movie substitute teacher type, or what was like your
A couple
go-to
times I was.
curriculum?
A couple times I was.
Just put on a movie, kick the feet
Yep.
up, and
Yep.
relax. Not a bad
Yep.
gig. And then you did something in
What was it?
2001.
What movie did I put on? I forgot the name of the movie, but it had the kid from Malcolm in the Middle and Paul Giamatti in it. I remember putting that on for a class.
Did it get a good reaction? I mean,
Yeah,
were the middle
yeah,
school kids into it? I mean, I figure they would be.
yeah. It kept me quiet. That's all I know.
Yeah. But even before you did the whole substitute teaching thing, in April of 2001, you started a website called
Yep.
Sports Encyclopedia.
And it ran for
Um,
20 years. I pretty much gave it away to someone last year. I just didn't have the time to run it anymore, and it's Wiki took everything I had off of it. So
so I
all that information wasn't at your fingertips 20 years ago, and it was a way to actually do something and keep my mind out and just keep just doing something and producing something, showing I could produce something, and it really helped get Barstool to notice me.
So when you started, we'll get into what the actual website is because for people who haven't heard of it or checked out, I think it lives on another website now, or at least some of the
Yeah, it was a
archives.
sports history website where I had team by team histories of every team.
And naturally, being a Sacramento Kings fan, I immediately went to the Kings section. And just to give everyone an appreciation for how in depth it was, you had I think every season starting in like the 70s, and you would write like a paragraph. It was more than a paragraph, but it was a paragraph style
Yep.
column where you would basically break down the entire season and say, I remember there's a couple seasons. It's like, the Kings started, 4-8 this season. DeMarcus Cousins had a bad, had a slow start to the season, and then they went. I mean, you documented pretty much the entire season, going all the way back to the '70s, and you did this for every team. I mean,
Well,
how long
I
did
went
that
back
take?
and further in the '70s. I did the Kansas City Kings. I did the Cincinnati Royals also,
That's right.
and the Rochester Royals.
That's right. I mean, how long did that take?
It took about 5 to 6 years to build.
Wow. And what was your goal with the website? I mean, you talked about producing something, maybe getting noticed. Did you
Yeah, that
have
was
any
my
big?
goal. That
That
was my
was the
goal.
only, and just kind of see
Yep.
where it went from there.
Yep.
Huh. What was the most fun you had with that website? Like, was there a specific year or season or team? I mean, obviously, the Mets and the Devils and your teams. I'm sure you had a lot of fun writing about them. But anything else that stuck out from building that website?
When I went back and did the defunct league site section, the ABA, the WHA, those leagues were very interesting.
Tell us more.
Well, I did the ABA history for all the ABA teams. Some teams came and went real fast. WHA even more obscure teams. I went and did like the 18th century baseball teams that didn't even make it to the 19th century, make it to past the 19th to the Cleveland Spiders, American Association. Um, if I ever had like a full backing and a full team to build a website, I would have eventually have done the Negro Leagues, which I think would have been fantastic. Doing a page for the Newark Eagles. I did the Lost NFL section, which is NFL teams that mostly played before 1933. And there was a team in Newark called Newark Tornadoes. So those pages were like some of my favorite.
So I'm a big sports fan, but I am not into as much of the history of sports as clearly as you are, because I have not built a website dedicated to that. I haven't, I'm not too familiar with what, the leagues were like in the 60s, even the 70s. That's, before my time. What was sports history something that you were always into, or like what
Yeah,
was
yeah,
okay,
always
so
into sport history. I mean, that's why whenever anyone says that so and so played against plumbers, I'm offended.
So you had a rant. So I think there's a rant that I think Barstool posted today that I don't know what inspired it, but somebody probably said that the talent, back in the 80s and the 90s in the NBA wasn't as great, and then you had to fire back.
Yeah, it was Jerry West. Jerry West died. So I heard someone say they talk about Jerry West, and they said that well, Jerry West was playing again. Will only play in his era, and that's no. First off, they had okay, they didn't have as many great players, and of course, sports science has made everyone uh, better in shape, better this, better that. But those teams were good. Those players were good. You had instead of having 30 teams of some teams mediocre, some teams you had maybe 3 or 4 teams that were really strong and really deep. And in this time, the Celtics won 11 championships in 13 years, including 8 in a row. Um, Usually beating up Jerry West's Lakers. And I mean, Chamberlain, Russell, West, Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson. I mean, these guys aren't plumbers. I mean, it's ridiculous. Even notice that the only sport where you can maybe say plumbers about is the old NFL when if you weren't a quarterback, a receiver, or a running back, those offensive linemen were pretty much worked construction in the offseason and then came out and played. But those basketball players were good. They made shots. It was a different game. It was a different way of playing back then. A way that doesn't exist anymore. But you can't just discount it. You can't just write it off and say, oh, because they're not as great shape as they were back then. No, they found a way. They made the sport entertaining It was a team game, a different game, and the way they played differently. And players like Jerry West are great.
What's your reaction? Because I see these clips on Twitter all the time, or X, whatever you want to call it, and it's clips from the '90s, and it's clips of bad defense, and everybody raves about the physicality in the
Bad
'90s, but
defense. Who
and
was
so
playing bad defense in the 90s?
I'm just saying these are clips that exist on Twitter, and people will comment and say,
Yeah,
"Wow, the
well,
defense was so
maybe
great in the
maybe
'90s."
every now and then there was bad defense, but I'll tell you that the Knicks of the mid '90s, there was not a better defense. There was, I mean, the Knicks Rocket series in 1994. That was just a defensive war. I don't think any team had a bad defensive game in that series. I mean, it was just a war of attrition the whole series. Uh, when Jordan went up against the Knicks, those were some like tremendous games. I mean, bitter games, and and Jordan. Keep in mind, oh, geez, this happens to my camera every now and then. It just goes blurry for no reason.
That's okay.
Um, and what you had was you had the Bulls won 6 championships in 8 years. The 2 years they didn't win it were the 1 year that Jordan was retired and the 1 year that Jordan came back in March and wasn't in fully great shape. Uh, then you had, I mean, he beat in the NBA Finals in '91. He beat Magic Johnson. He tormented Patrick Ewing. I mean, beat the Knicks several times on the way to the finals. Beat a pretty good Blazers team with Clyde Drexler in '92. They beat the Suns, who had a great season, '93, with Charles Barkley having the best year of his career. In '96, they came back and they beat they swept Shaquille and the Magic. They beat up on the Supersonics, who had a great season that year. The next 2 years, they beat the Jazz in the finals. I mean, those Jazz teams, any other era, they would have won at least one championship. But you had the Jazz, the Suns, the Knicks. We're talking Karl Malone, John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing. These players did not get a ring. They never didn't do ring chasing like these assholes do now, like Kevin Durant. What a phony he is. But they didn't do ring chasing back then. And you know what? These players, these great players, did not get a ring. And the sole reason they did not get a ring is because of Michael Jordan. And it's just for that reason alone that he has the highest point per game record. I don't care how. LeBron James played 21 years. He better have the scoring record. I mean, my God. And LeBron James changing teams more than he changes his fucking underwear. I mean, and 2020 championship, that is the most fugazi championship ever. I mean, that was so fugazi that bubble. Everyone's going on and partying after the game. Just they can't go anywhere. They can't leave the fucking premises. So what you had is everyone hanging out with LeBron, and he softened them up like butter. That's what Russell used to do in Boston. What he would do is he'd get you out to go out on to go drinking with him. He'd always like Wilt Chamberlain come to town, and he take him out to dinner, and he'd soften him up, and it was like and that was like an old thing that NBA players used to do. Dr. J would soften up players whenever he came up against a rookie, and what they would do, these like veterans would like always soften up the young rookies, and basically and then the next day they dominate them on the court, and that's how basically that was like a growing and learning experience. Oh, okay, I can't let this guy push me around. So they try to be nice to them, and then they go on the court there and they're vicious, and they go, oh, okay. If you saw Winning Time, they had the episode where Magic Johnson was invited out to go hanging out with Dr. J, and he was amazed that he's hanging out with Dr. J, and Kareem says, "You fool, that's how he gets you. He softens you up that way." And that's just how they played back then. It's how the league worked back then. And I mean, but sports science has made it so that these players are better. But they were good then. They were good then. And to say anything different is just ridiculous.
So comparing for someone who didn't watch basketball during the 80s and 90s, but has watched basketball during the 2000s, grew up with the Kings and those losses to the Lakers. Game six was rigged, by the way. That
Of
has
course it
been
was.
proven. The
That 2002 team is one of the biggest crimes of all time. Now I always wonder, could the Kings have gotten to the finals and gone in and maybe have been picked off by the Nets?
You
Of
think
course, the
so?
Nets got their asses handed to them by the Lakers, but I think the Nets team could have had a better chance against the Kings than they did against the Lakers, certainly.
Okay, well let's do this because now I'm intrigued. So let's do a hypothetical Kings Nets finals matchup. So you got what? Jason Kidd versus Mike Bibby. I'm assuming
Kid
that
was
they would
better.
put Kidd was better, but I'm assuming the Kings would probably put Doug Christie on Kidd. I think that would be the matchup, and then you'd probably put Bibby on Kittles. I think.
Yeah, probably.
Um, and then Kenyon Martin and Weber. I mean, that would have been
That would have been physical,
just a
just tough
bloodbath.
play. I think where the Kings would have had a big advantage was at center.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times the Nets are putting Todd McCulloch out there. That's
Speaking of
how.
plumbers.
Yeah, that yeah. Todd McCulloch used to. Shaq used him as a toothpick.
Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I would have taken the Kings in that. I think I like their
The Kings
chances.
probably would have won, but it would have been like a 6-game series, not a sweep.
Yeah. I mean, we just played team basketball. Like I go back and watch highlights of that team and it's just poetry in motion. Like everyone is together, cohesive.
It's a shame what happened. It is a shame what happened. Uh, I think for all the good David Stern did for the NBA, that's his one blemish is that year. I think
Yeah.
that's the one stain on his career as 30 years as commissioner.
Yeah. So that also brings up
And
another
you know what it
point.
was, don't you? You know what the
Mhm.
issue was.
Mhm.
That was the final season of basketball on NBC. And basically, NBC was worried that there would be New Jersey versus Sacramento wouldn't get much ratings. So they kind of like push the NBA into try to get the Lakers there if you can.
I never considered that. I never thought of that. That just
Oh,
you just blew
it
my mind,
was
Frank.
there's no other way there's no other reason they would do that except television ratings.
Wow. That just I
There's no
never
other. That's the only reason they would do that. Television
do
ratings.
do you think that still plays a part in today's not just NBA but NFL and other leagues?
It
Time to get
could, but
conspiracy theories
The NFL could put two terrible teams on, and it will still everyone will watch.
like the
So,
Dolphins.
uh,
I had to do it, Frank.
well,
I had to get my
The
job.
Dolphins actually have one of the more exciting teams. They have the offensive. They have hype, which sells tickets, which brings eyeballs. Uh, uh, Teams like New York will always bring eyeballs, but so a good example probably just like a game no one cared about would be like Carolina, who was awful team playing against Denver right now, who's also pretty bad.
Yeah.
That would be like a low rated game, but it's the NFL. The NFL, anything the NFL does is good. Right now the basketball ratings are struggling because I think everyone assumes the Celtics are going to win the series. They're up 2-0. Currently, the Dallas got off to a hot start in Game 3, but right now that game's pretty close. If Dallas doesn't win today, that series is over.
Mhm.
Turn out the lights, and then you got hockey. The television executives in America can't be too happy about it because it's Edmonton, of course. Hockey fans know how good Edmonton is and how good Connor McDavid is, and he's the best star player in the league, but he's playing up there in Edmonton, so uh, who in Middle America is going to care about Edmonton and the Florida Panthers? Not many people in Florida actually care about the Florida Panthers.
That's fair. The Sunrise Panthers, I think, is what they should be named. And it's one of those things too. Like everybody confuses, like everybody thinks with the Florida Panthers, like nobody knows where they play. They're like, oh, they play, obviously somewhere in Florida, but most people think it's like Miami. It's like, no, it's actually in Sunrise, which is like 40 minutes north, and nobody realizes that.
I've never been there, but someone told me that if you walk about the half a mile, you're basically in the Everglades.
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, even yeah.
Basically, Sunrise is like is right by the Everglades.
Yeah. Well, even Hard Rock is kind of out there. Like it's not close to Miami. Like it's a good like 30 minutes
actually,
outside.
It used to be Miami.
Yeah.
You know the story about that, right?
I don't. Please tell me.
Miami Gardens has only been a city for about not even 20 years. Basically, it was like a portion of northern Miami wanted to break off and become their own municipality, and that's just happens to be where the stadium is. It's called Miami Gardens, and it used to be part of Miami. Now it's a different town called Miami Gardens. So it's just north of Miami, which there's parts of northern Miami which is you take your life down your hands if you walk there at night. I remember I haven't watched it in a while, but the first 48 on A&E with the homicide cops, they're always in Miami, and it's always like there's this like section Overbrook, I think it's called, and there's like a housing project they call it the graveyard because there's so many killings in the this housing project.
Yeah. I've been to Hard Rock a couple times, and you are right. You take a step or two in the wrong direction, and you can find yourself in a whole world of hurt. That is definitely the case. I will say though that stadium is beautiful, and
they've done a magnificent job in repurposing that stadium.
Yeah,
it does not look like the same stadium it was prior to the renovation. It looks like a completely different stadium.
I will say too, I went to the Miami Open a couple months ago, and they did a pretty good job of turning that into a tennis event as well. I mean, and they have the F1 race over there. I mean, it's a beautiful venue for sure.
Yeah, it's very nice. They'll probably get another Super Bowl in the next 5 years, so that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Well, that brings back bad memories of when the Niners lost to the Chiefs the first time. I'm a big Niners fan. Obviously Miami, but we did have that halftime show, which was a spectacle in and itself. So that was exciting. Frank, I've always wondered. So you're a Mets fan, you're a Devils fan, which makes sense, being from New Jersey in that area. But the Dolphins, how did that happen?
The simplest answer is Dan Marino. Of course, I before that I was kind of a fan of the TV show Flipper. When I was really young, they actually went to a Super Bowl with lost to the Redskins in Super Bowl 17. I was 7. I remember watching that game. Then Dan Marino came along the next year, and I basically studied with it. That's how I've been a Dolphin fan my whole life.
And I mean, Dan Marino, one of the greats. What's speaking of quarterbacks, your opinion on Tua? I have a lot of Dolphins fans in my life, and they seem to be torn on Tua and what the Dolphins should do.
I'm kind of torn on it too. I don't think he got a foot. He was healthy for the first time last year, but the whole team fell apart, and I don't think you can blame him for anything that went wrong. It was injuries to the defense, and then they had to play in conditions that are probably colder than most freezers.
Fair enough. Definitely colder than anything they experienced in Miami. But I will say, like, September, October in Miami, that is a legitimate home field advantage because of the heat.
Yeah, and the NFL kneecapped the Dolphins this year.
How so?
They start the season against Jacksonville, another team that's accustomed to the heat, and then they play their second game of the season is a Thursday night game against the Bills. They blunted that sun. That sun beats down on those benches.
It does. It
I remember a
does.
couple years ago going to the home opener when they played the Patriots, and the Patriots looked like they were dying on the sidelines.
Well, I've seen video. It's like 120 degrees on the sidelines. Like they have those thermometers out there,
Yeah,
and they,
the heat just the stadium is built in such a way that the canopy shades the home sideline, and the sun beats down directly down on the visiting sideline.
yeah, it's brutal. I listen. The Niners don't play there until December, which I'm thankful for. So I'm excited to see how that game goes. I believe in my man Brock Purdy. I think he showed a lot last year, and I think he's gonna. I think this is the year, Frank. Listen, I've been saying that this is the year for the past 6 years. I think this is the year that we finally do it, get over the hump. I know it's hard to get back to the Super Bowl, and I know injuries are, they play a huge part. You mentioned the Dolphins and the injuries on their defense last year, but if we can stay healthy, I like the Niners again this year.
Well, we'll see. If you ask me right now, I think the Lions are going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, the Lions. Okay. With Dan Campbell, Mr. Fourth Down. Interesting. Okay. Why do you think the Lions?
I just
You
got a
believe
funny
in Jared
feeling.
Goff? Think Goff can take him?
I just got a funny feeling. I like their defense.
Yeah. But you trust Goff though in the Super Bowl?
No, he made it once before.
That's fair. Yeah, he did. And then they lost to the Patriots. Frank, I want to get into your Barstool stuff. So obviously, huge sports media personality. Which actually, before we get into the Barstool stuff and how that came to be, how does it feel to be famous? Like how, for those of us who are not, pros and cons of getting recognized at games or even just like walking down the street.
Well, I'm trying to do a dirty ballpark tour, and basically, I have to scrap my City Field episode because I literally couldn't shoot anything because of how many times I'm interrupted while I'm trying to shoot. So it's like Frank, 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 Frank. I can't walk around City Field. I literally cannot walk around City Field without going 5 feet. It's crazy. It's nice, but sometimes it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. When you were a court clerk, I believe you did that for 16 years. Did you ever think that, I mean, this was going to happen? Like, did you ever see yourself becoming this big of a hit?
No, I did not see that. I mean, it's been quite a run, and I'm going to the PLL this weekend in Philadelphia. Then I'm going to Reading. Then I'm going to Chicago for the dozen tournament, and I'll be going a few stops here and there in between.
Just a wild ride. I mean, it started back in 2017, to my understanding, and I believe
Yep,
you started part-time with Barstool. And
yep.
eventually that turned into a full-time gig. I believe I actually just watched the video of Dave talking about hiring you on full-time, which was crazy. So that was back in October of 2020. I mean, I guess take us through, first of all, how did this Barstool thing come about? And then what were like your first impressions working for Barstool?
That it was a unique experience. They put out unique content, and when I got full time, it's been just a blast.
How did they recognize you? I think you had that New Jersey transit video
Yep,
that,
that's where it all
that went
started. It all
viral.
started from that.
Do you ever think how your life would be different if that video never went viral, or if that camera never panned over to you?
I have no idea anymore. I can't imagine it.
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess starting at Barstool, so Jersey Jerry did an interview with Adam Brenneman, and Jersey Jerry was talking about contract negotiations with Barstool, and how they are not your ordinary contracts. And he mentioned that in his contract he wanted two pizzas a month and he wanted Steelers tickets once a month. Well, is there anything interesting in your contract, or is it just vanilla?
It's just vanilla. My contract's vanilla. I'm easy.
Yeah. um, yeah. Are there any drawbacks to working at Barstool? Because I mean, for a lot of people, it seems like the dream job. You just talk about sports all day.
No,
Is there
I
anything
would
that?
say there's no drawbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it it seems like such a cool gig. What can you tell us about Dave Portnoy? We see the guy behind the camera, but what's it like working for Dave?
It's nice. He really is a nice guy. He's got a cutting sense of humor, but what you see pretty much is what you get.
Yeah, and you have your Frank Walks series on YouTube now
Yep,
as
PK
well.
Subban's out now,
PK
which is quite
Subban is
interesting
out.
because I've had some bad tweets about him, so I had to face the music with that. So tune in,
Yeah, absolutely.
subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to my Rumble.
Frank, so I have listed here, I thought I'd ask you. So from the guests that you had on the Walks series, you had JJ Watt. We spoke about Dave Portnoy a little bit. Scott Van Pelt and Saquon were some of your more recent guests. Is there anything interesting that you learned from each one of those, or just getting to meet them? Is there anything that stuck out to you?
Not really, not really. I learned a lot of these people are really nice. Uh, I walked with the Stanley Cup guy, and they had like didn't have the they didn't have the main guy. They had like one of the other people, and the guy was kind of a stiff. He didn't talk much, so I had to like carry the conversation talking about the history of the Stanley Cup. Uh, I have some really good ones coming out too. Season one's coming to a close in a couple of weeks, and then we're going to start shooting season two when we can, when we start lining up new guests. But I got Shaheen Holloway of Seton Hall coming out, and Dwight Gooden coming out in the next 2 weeks. So that's going to be some good ones. Gooden, of course, Gooden's probably one of the main reasons I'm a Mets fan. I was 9 years old when he had his best season ever in 1985, and been hooked with the Mets ever since.
Yeah. No, for all of those who are listening or watching and have not checked out the series, I highly recommend it. And Frank, I have to say, I mean, just an amazing weight loss journey that you've been on. I mean, to date, how many pounds have you lost?
I've lost about 60 since August, and at my heaviest I was over 500 at one point. So now I'm at 321. So 320, 323 actually. Yeah. So
That's unbelievable. Kudos to you, Frank. That's amazing. Speaking of, the walk series that you have, you also have Tanks Cooks, and you have a bunch of different Obviously, you're famous for your rants and your reactions to your sports teams, which we all know and love. Take us inside the mind of Frank the Tank. Like, how do you approach content? Like, what's your game plan?
just keep putting it out. Just keep putting it out. Put it out every day. All 5 days a week, and just see what ones are the ones the new one coming out tomorrow is chicken piccata, which I actually kind of got a little burn on my hand on while making.
And that one's coming out tomorrow on YouTube.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna have to give it a watch. So Frank, we've talked a lot about obviously sports stuff, Barstool Sports, your content. This is kind of a selfish question, but I figured someone who's as knowledgeable about the history of sports as you are might appreciate this. So the four major sports leagues: the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB. What's like your favorite random fact from each one of those leagues? Putting you on the spot here, I know.
All right. Baseball was the first big one. It's the oldest league of the four. Back to the 19th century, and there's not much that's really random that's about it, except for the fact that once they said that once the Dodgers and Giants moved west, there was a very big reluctance to put more teams in, but the New York wanting to get back in the National League is what forced expansion. So basically, the birth of the Mets changed basically how baseball was run. So that's always interesting. Of course, you have the years of segregation in baseball, which were kind of unfortunate. They're trying to integrate the stats in now, but I think they're kind of going at it the wrong way. I think you do it for because it's kind of weird because I don't even know if the numbers are complete for some of these things. I mean, I think Satchel Paige probably could have won as many games as Cy Young if he had a fair chance. But that will be never known, and that I think that fact that you would never fully know has to be part of the story. The NFL was founded in a car dealership in 1920 in Canton, Ohio. Was originally the American Association for Professional Football. The oldest teams are the Chicago Cardinals, who moved to St. Louis and then Arizona. Then you had the Decatur Staleys, who became the Chicago Bears, and of course the Green Bay Packers. But many of the original teams linked into baseball. So the New York Giants named themselves after the baseball team. The Detroit Lions went to the Lions because they wanted to have a feline name to go hand in hand with the Tigers. The Cubs, Bears. We had that connection because a bear sounds tougher than a cub, so you had to be calling the Bears. The Pittsburgh Steelers were one time the Pittsburgh Pirates. There once was a Brooklyn Dodgers minor league NFL team. Of course, the Chicago Cardinals moved to St. Louis, and they were playing at the same time as the St. Louis Cardinals. So you had like a lot of connections to try to draw fans from baseball in the early years. Hockey, you only had 6 teams for a 25-year stretch. And we're going to 1967. The league expanded from 6 to 12 teams. There were a bunch of teams that didn't make it out of the Depression, including the New York Americans, who basically got evicted from Madison Square Garden by the Rangers. Tried to build an arena in Brooklyn, but the war came, so they had to put themselves on hiatus. And then they wanted to start back up, and the Rangers blocked it. So you only had 6 teams for a 25-year stretch from 42 to 67. And then the league doubled to 12 teams. And in 1967, the Montreal Canadiens had the most Stanley Cup championships. 14. The Maple Leafs were right behind them with 13 championships, winning their 13th championship in 1967. The Maple Leafs have not been back to the Stanley Cup Finals since.
And I think they had that drought too, right? Where they didn't win a playoff series in however long. I forget 20 years, yeah.
19 years. It was they didn't win a playoff series between 2004 and 2023.
Yeah.
And they've only won one playoff series since 2004.
Yeah, when they beat Tampa last year. I remember that because everybody was celebrating that they finally won a playoff series.
Yeah, so it's been quite a dry spell for Toronto. And they are basically the heart of Canada. I mean, Montreal is French Canada, but they act like the Yankees. They're basically Canada's team because they're hyped up like the Cowboys, and yet they just choke every year.
Yeah, I was about to say, I heard someone say that they're Cowboys of the NHL, and I haven't been able to get that out of my head since.
The NBA, I've always just looked at that 8-year stretch. 11 and 13, 8 straight years that the Celtics won championships. As just being, wow.
Speaking of, I know we talked about, the old years. People always say, well, the Celtics won most of their championships, way back when. Do you think that there's any credibility to that?
No. You either won a championship or you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing that got erased is football. Football, they have pre-Super Bowl and post-Super Bowl, and a lot of people don't realize that there was a history before the Super Bowl. Like the Cleveland Browns were a dominant team. They played in a league called the All-American Football Conference, won the championship 4 straight seasons. and put the league out of business because they were so dominant that the NFL absorbed three teams from the AAFC. One was the Browns. One was a Colts team that was a precursor to the current Colts team. Do you know who the third team is?
Couldn't tell you.
Really?
The Colts, the Browns.
Who's the third AAFC team? They still exist.
AAFC.
They were in the AAFC and joined the NFL in 1950.
Give me a hint.
I will give it away.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
You are going to kick yourself.
The 49ers?
It is the 49ers.
Look at that. See, that's the extent of my sports history, Frank. That's why I wanted to have you on, so you could teach me some things.
Yep, it is the 49ers. And so everyone thought, oh, the Browns, yeah, you won that league. The AAFC won it all 4 years the league existed. So, week 1, 1950 season, Browns' first NFL game, they have to play the two-time defending NFL champion Philadelphia Eagles, and they kicked the Eagles' ass. The Browns end up going to the NFL championship game in each of their first 6 years in the NFL, and won 2 championships. In 50 and again in 54. And they went to the NFL championship game again in 57. So 7 of their first 8 years in the NFL, they were in the NFL championship game and won 2 championships. Lost to the Rams in 51 and lost 3 times to the Detroit Lions.
So you're telling me the Browns aren't as sorry of a franchise as I thought, because post Super Bowl era, it's been rough for the Brownies.
The year before the Super Bowl started, the last year before the Super Bowl started, well, actually no, the Packers won that year. 2 years before the Super Bowl started, 64, the Browns also won a championship.
There you go. Browns fans, you didn't have it that bad. You had some success in, it sounds like the 50s, the 60s.
Yeah, they had, the 70s were kind of a dry decade for them. They went to a couple of NFL championship games at the end of the 60s. They lost to the Colts on the way to Super Bowl III. They lost to the Vikings on the way to Super Bowl IV. Then they didn't win another playoff game until 86, and they went to the AFC Championship game in the 80s 3 times in 4 years.
Wow. Who, NFL wise, I mean, when you think of historic franchise, obviously the Packers, are up there. Who's at the top for you?
The Packers are the Packers have had a dry spell too.
That's right, they have.
They had a pretty bad dry spell from 67 until 92. Well, they only made the playoffs twice in that period. That's between Super Bowl II and Super Bowl 27. They only made the playoffs twice in that stretch. And one of those years was a strike year. So the Packers had a pretty rough 70s, 80s. Here's something that you may not know. Prior to the Super Bowl, there was one team that never won an NFL championship game, except for the 49ers. Don't count the 49ers. The 49ers were only existed from 1950. There was one NFL team that existed prior to 1950, never played an NFL championship game prior to the Super Bowl.
I'm thinking. Prior to 1950, never played an NFL championship game.
In fact, they came into the league in 1932, and between 32 and 69, they had maybe 4 or 5 winning seasons.
Okay, so early team. Huh.
that was the absolute doormat of the NFL for a better part of 40 years. In fact, they finally won a playoff game in 1972. It was their first ever. It was their 40th season, and they won a playoff game in 1972 for the first time.
The Dolphins.
No, Dolphins. Dolphins didn't exist until '66.
That's right. Okay. Huh. I don't know. Who is it?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow. Would never have guessed that. The Pittsburgh Steelers. So it took them 40 years to win one playoff game.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, that's why they moved. That's why they were moved from the NFC to the from the NFL to the AFC when the two leagues merged, and they evened the leagues out to 13 teams apiece. Because at the time when the merger finally came through, there were 16 NFL teams and 10 AFL teams. So in '70, when the full merger was put through, they had to move 3 teams from the NFC to what would have been the NFC to the AFC. And the Steelers were one of the worst teams year in, year out. In fact, 1969, they went 1-13.
Have you told Jerry this? Is he aware
I'm not sure if he's aware of it.
Of his team's history? Frank, you need to enlighten Jerry about the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, well, it actually ended up turning out for them really well because things started turning around because they had the number 1 overall pick in 1970 and chose Terry Bradshaw.
Not a bad pick.
The Pittsburgh Steelers also had the greatest draft in NFL history in 1974.
Okay, tell me more.
Let me see if I can look it up. The 1974 Pittsburgh Steelers draft. It is the greatest draft any team's ever had for any sport. And that year they had 17 picks. They had 17 rounds that they drafted. And of course, none of the guys they drafted after the 9th round made it. But the first 5 picks they made, they had 5. The player they picked in the 5th round was Mike Webster, Hall of Fame center. The 4th round was Jimmy Allen. He didn't have much of a career, I think. He had an okay career. But they're picking the 3rd round, John Stallworth, Hall of Famer. They're picking the 2nd round, Jack Lambert, Hall of Famer. They're picking the 1st round, Lynn Swann, Hall of Famer. So they had drafted 4 Hall of Famers in its first 5 rounds that year.
Wow. And
all but Mike Webster played their entire career with the Steelers. Mike Webster just happened to finish career playing 2 seasons with the Chiefs at the end of his career.
Does that draft compare to that Seahawks draft when they drafted Sherman? And was Cam also part of that? I'm forgetting if that he was also part of that class.
Oh, no. Nothing pales in comparison to four Hall of Famers in 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they won 4 of the next 6 Super Bowls afterwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just have to go. I mean, you just have to endure the 40 years. And then afterwards, it was, it was all great. I mean, that's amazing. 4 Hall of Famers in the first 5 rounds. That's insane.
Another thing about the Steelers that and now he just signed a 3-year extension, so it's gonna go even longer. Since 1969, the Steelers have only had 3 coaches.
Yeah, so I saw that somewhere, and that's insane. I mean, Tomlin's been there forever, but even before Tomlin, that's crazy.
Chuck Noll was there from 92. Was there from 69 to 92. Won 4 Super Bowls. Bill Cowher was there from, and now Bill Cowher is going to be in the one that's like the shortest tenure. He was there 92 to 2006, and then it's been Tomlin since 2007.
That's crazy. I mean, teams, I can't, especially in recent years where it seems like teams go through coaches like, like it's nothing. The fact that Tomlin is still there. I mean, do you think that they did the right thing by extending him, given his track record the past, let's say 5 years?
He finds a way to get a winning record every year.
That's fair. 9-8.
He's never had a losing record. He's never had a losing season.
9-8.
He's won 2 Super Bowls. He's actually no, he won one Super Bowl, lost the second one.
Hmm.
But the Steelers are always in the playoff picture. So what more can you want?
Yeah, fair enough.
Here's an interesting stat for you. Uh, well, it just shows you how dumpster fire the Dolphins have been the last 20 years. Nick Saban leaves the Dolphins high and dry after the 2006 season.
Hmm.
So they go interviewing coaches. Using the Rooney Rule, they talk to Mike Tomlin. And internal notes of why he wasn't high, of why Mike Tomlin is the wrong choice for the Dolphins. He's too hip hop.
That was an act that was the actual note that he was too hip hop.
Yeah. And then they hired Cam Cameron, who went 1-15. Those motherfucking morons.
You can't do it like the Dolphins. It's been 24 years. Is it 2000 the last time you guys won a playoff game?
Yes.
2000.
Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. This story came out in 2022. That basically da 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 da. Yeah, okay. 2011 was the first time it happened, and it was written by a Dolphins employee who was directly involved in the hiring process of the 2007 coaching search, and said that Mike Tomlin was not hired because the Dolphins organization thought he was too hip hop.
I feel like that story with that quote, just like if an alien landed on planet Earth and was like, "Hey, how have the Dolphins been for the past 24 years?" You just show them that story and that quote, and I feel like that tells them everything they need to know about. I feel a rant incoming, Frank. I feel like just let it out.
You ever hear coded language?
No.
Yeah, well, that's fucking coded language. That means the Dolphins are too fucking racist to have a fucking clue in their goddamn motherfucking heads.
That is true. Too hip hop. That's insane. I'm laughing, but honestly, it's crazy.
Yeah, that story came out a few years ago that the Dolphins had a chance to hire Mike Tomlin, and the internal discussions basically felt that Mike Tomlin was too hip hop for the job.
Do you think do you think Mike McDaniel is too hip hop for the job?
Mike Tomlin is basically a nerd. He's Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, the guy's probably thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. But the funny thing is, he's like the cool hippie. He's vaping on the sideline. He's obviously smoking here and there. But he's got to start making results because I think he's gotten away with the fact that they haven't won a playoff game yet. But if they don't win a playoff game this season, they're going to start. He's going to have to start answering some harsh questions.
Yeah, Frank, I want to be respectful of your time. We're closing in on an hour here. I feel like there's one little thing that we do here on the podcast that we have to end the episode with. But before that, I feel like it wouldn't be right if I didn't ask you specifically about the Dolphins because we've been talking about them. How do you fix the Dolphins? You are the owner. You come in. What do you do with the Dolphins?
Well, I think you have to just roll with it. They've dedicated themselves to being the fastest team in the league. They're the fastest team in the league. Now they got to see if they could hold up on defense. This new thing, landing the hip tackle, that could make things very interesting. And now they just got to figure out a way to be a defense that doesn't suck, and offensive line that protects the quarterback, and they could probably do good. Wow.
Are you concerned about the defense? You guys lost a lot of pieces.
Yes, I am. Although the loss of Xavier Howard doesn't concern me anymore. This guy's a prick.
Wait, is that like a personal thing, or you think he's lost it on the field as well? Like
Well, he's
he's
lost
lost a
on the field
step.
as well. His career's over.
Heard it here first.
Well, first off, he's being sued for giving 4 women sexually transmitted diseases, and he could be facing some time.
Yeah.
He apparently got into a fight with one of the women he was canoodling, and this woman actually has a young son, I believe, or a young child, and to harass her, he sent sexually explicit photos of his mother to him.
I did not hear about this.
Yeah, that came out last week. X gonna give it to you.
Wow.
So I think
Jeez.
his career is basically over. He was garbage the last 2 years, couldn't stay healthy the last 2 years. And, well, I can't imagine anyone wanting to deal with that baggage.
Yeah. Wow, I did
Especially
not know
since
about
he's
that.
lost his step.
Yeah. Dang. Well, you might be right. Xavier Howard, listen, I like the guy on the field, the guy off the field, not so much.
The player I'm most upset about the losing is, well, of course, Christian Wilkins and Andrew Van Ginkel. Those are the 2 players that I'm unhappy about them losing.
Yeah. Well, especially Phillips, Jalen Phillips coming off the injury.
Yeah, we'll see how he is. Chubb, too.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting for the Dolphins. Frank, listen, I'm rooting for the Dolphins. I have a lot of Dolphins fans in my life. You know, I want to see the Dolphins be good again. It's a big market. It's I like, Mike McDaniel, 49ers guy. I like him. There's a lot of pieces that, that fit in with the Dolphins. They just got to put it all together. And
Yep.
I'm rooting for Miami, Frank. I'll be rooting for you guys. Not against my Niners, but in all other games, I will root for the Dolphins. Frank, this has been an amazing conversation. Coming up on already past an hour. I know it's getting late, but there is one thing that we do here on the podcast that I do with every guest. So I ask every guest for a piece of advice that they would like to leave for the next guest. But the catch is that you don't know who the next guest is going to be. So our last guest on the show was Merrill Hodge. So Merrill played in the NFL, was on ESPN.
Merrill Hodge, I think he went to Idaho State, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe he did. Yeah, Idaho State. I think he played 4 or 5 years there.
Well, I remember him with the Steelers, and I just remember him. He's from the part of Idaho where my parents live in Pocatello.
Oh, that's pretty. Oh, small world. Look at that. Yeah, Merrill was awesome. Obviously, career cut short by concussion and brain trauma. And his life story is insane too. Fighting through cancer, it's pretty remarkable. So, Merrill Hodge, his advice for you, not knowing that you were going to come on next, was letting go of something is sometimes not a one-time thing. Sometimes it's a daily thing, and when you practice that, you can lighten the load in life. So, first of all, I guess, what does that advice mean to you? And then what's the piece of advice you like to leave for our next guest?
I guess let go of your anger. I actually have the opposite advice. Your anger gives you focus. It makes you stronger.
So you're taking the path of the Sith?
Yes, I am.
I think that's a direct quote from Star Wars. I'm pretty sure Palpatine said that at some point. I think he directly quoted Emperor Palpatine, Frank. I think that's what you did. So for the next guest, we're just gonna say that we had Emperor Palpatine on the show, and his piece of advice was to use your anger to let it focus you. Oh my God, Frank! What a great way to end the podcast. Can't thank you enough for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed the facts and the history. Like I said, did not know much of it. So you are a wealth of knowledge. And if Sports Encyclopedia ever gets its legs again, I would love to see that website or something similar. I think it would be a huge asset. Great. Yeah. I think it would be a huge asset, and I would be a daily consumer diving through the archives and looking through all the history. So, if you made it this far, go check out Frank on YouTube. You know him from Barstool Sports. You know him as the Mets fan, the Devils fan, Dolphins fan, and
Knicks fan,
Knicks convert. That's correct. Yeah. How's that going, by the way? Really quick before we end. Obviously, tough loss this year.
They played with a lot of heart.
What do you want to see for next year?
The team stay healthy.
Fair enough. Frank, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you again for coming on.
All right. See you guys later.